Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the British Columbia Museums Association webinar. My name is Anissa Paulson, and I will be your host for today. Today's webinar topic is Successful Strategies for Engaging Younger Audiences in Heritage Programming. This webinar will be presented by Mary Forbes, who is the director of the Williams Lake Potato House. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that the BC Museum Association offices are located on the traditional lands of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and we are very grateful for the opportunity to live and learn here in mutual respect and appreciation. As well, we recognize the traditional lands of the many nations across British Columbia, where the work of the projects described in this webinar has been carried out. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our webinar sponsor today, Lucidia. Lucidia is a software solutions company based in Richmond, BC, and they develop collections management software systems that are suitable for libraries, archives, and museums, both large and small. Lucidia's motto is redefine how knowledge is shared, which we feel is quite fitting for our webinar sponsor. So we thank Lucidia for supporting BCMA as we seek to share knowledge through our webinar series. As I mentioned, I am Anissa Paulson, your host for today. I'm also BC Museums Association's Program Officer. I've been with the organization for 2 years now, but this is only my second webinar, so bear with me if there are any technical glitches. And if you are having any technical issues, please call or email Abigail, our operations manager. She is standing by to assist. A bit of housekeeping before we begin. If you're reading this slide, you're doing great. And if you can't, please go ahead and call Abigail. Again, her number is 250-356-5700 if you need help getting online or hearing me. You can use the chat feature to ask questions or make comments, and I will read your comments or questions out to Mary. And Mary encourages you all to just ask questions at any point during her presentation. It's not necessary to wait until the end. That said, there will be time at the end of the presentation as well for more questions and answers. And the chat button is in the either top or bottom area of your screen. Often you have to just kind of hold your mouse down and the bar will show, and then you can click on the chat to then type in your question if you have one. Okay, so this month's presenter is Mary Forbes, and I've included two pictures here, one that Mary submitted and the other one from our conference last October. As many of you may have gotten to know Mary at our conference in Kelowna last year and admired her many beautiful hats. So for those who do not know her, Mary Forbes is a retired oil patch archaeologist and former Lake Louise Parks Canada senior interpreter with a degree in archaeology from Simon Fraser University. In 2010, Mary won gold for Best Interpretive Program in Canada and now works in Williams Lake, BC as the executive director of the Potato House Project, a local heritage attraction. The Potato House, a heritage site of local significance from the 1940s, was purchased in 2010 by the Potato House Sustainable Community Society, whose twin mandates of heritage preservation and maintaining a gentle carbon footprint upon the land ensures that this landmark partnership has no impact on the landfill due to the fact that it is Canada's only drive-by composting program. Surrounded by community gardens, celebrating the era of the Victory Garden, and containing donations from the community and the living history site where everything can be read, worn, and in some cases smelled. Using everything from zombies to music to carbonated and fermented beverages, this young heritage site is raising the bar on bringing in new members. This presentation will include examples on how to successfully market your heritage site regionally to the younger demographics, which all museums and heritage sites strive to achieve. Now, Mary, over to you.
Thank you very much. So now I am going to move to my presentation, and I'm hitting the share button, and I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen. Anissa, can you see it still?
I can see it, yep.
And is it showing the sidebar as well, or only?
It is showing the sidebar, so you might want
to, I have to hit
go into presentation mode there.
Begin. Got it. Perfect.
Wonderful.
And with perfect, let me welcome all of you to Putting Your Peas in Line. I struggled with a couple of different titles for this presentation, I started with P's and Q's, but I didn't have as many words starting with Q. So I ended up moving on to some P's. Now there is a document that goes with this presentation that it has lists and samples of some of the things that I'll talk about in this presentation, but also has some additional things that I may not even touch on. I don't use a lot of text in my presentations. I prefer that you just watch and enjoy, and then the handout will be available to you at the end. This is me. I'm a goofball, and finding fun ways to engage younger audiences is one of my raison d'etre. I work at the Potato House Project, which Anissa just beautifully introduced, so thank you very much. I need not say much more. This is my coworker, Oliver. In the photo that you're seeing here, he is perched on the roof of our potato house with its original atrociously terrifying asphalt ceiling, stapling string lights so that we could put a billboard on our roof as a part of a fundraising campaign called This Place Matters. It was hosted through the Canadian National Trust, and we were able to raise funds for one mortgage payment of the year, which is $10,000, but what we really wanted was the $40,000 prize. And we were running neck and neck with the Civic Theatre in Nelson. Now you're here today not to hear about our past successes and partial failures. You're here to find out how we recruit young people. This is the attic of the Potato House, freshly spray foamed, containing my board of directors, and they are magnificent. And you can see that there is a wide range of demographics, from Pat at the very back next to the glowing light, who has been with the Potato House for the last 9 years, and even a little bit before that. Next to him is Hattie Deo. She's a mother of 4 and an enthusiastic president. Next to her is our treasurer, who right now is watching my children, so I can provide this webinar for you. Thank you, Nikki. And she also said, please recognize me today. You know, young people love to be recognized for their contributions. Next to her is Sarah, a Red Seal baker. Hey, museums, if you can get a Red Seal baker in your heritage site, you have an attraction like nothing else. And prior to her, the owner of the local toy store. Each one of these amazing people in the attic are connected to children directly and youth demographics. So targeting your board of directors as people who are already linked in the community to young people is a great place to start. Now, what about that smiling person with the pink mohawk? She's a school bus driver for the school district here in the Cariboo Regional District. And we have a bus fleet greater than the former Greyhound. So we've got a great foundation to engage younger audiences. Now, speaking of young, partnering them with old is sometimes a challenge. And there we are, the tiny potato house in this photo from 1956. I can tell you the downtown core of Williams Lake no longer looks exactly the same, but Potato House is still there and we're doing well. And taking photos is my first tip in putting your P's in line. There are so many ways to use photos to engage any audience, and I highly recommend cute children. Not only inviting them to come and have their photos taken at your heritage site where you can get images like this, but also inviting them to come and take the photos themselves. Get them a disposable camera or even their digital camera or their smartphone from mom and dad, and have them come down and take pictures of things that are important to them and have a children's art show. And the things they take pictures of will surprise you and allow you to refocus your mandate to the things that they find most special. We use professional photographers regularly at the Potato House, and they find things and beauty where sometimes we may not. My coworker Oliver, of the former photo on the roof, made this beautiful garden bed frame. It holds our grape arbor, and the grapes have been there since 1956 and are a summer attraction for all of our students who visit us during the school season. Another photo taken by a photographer passing by was the entrance to our basement door, again built by Oliver. He's an excellent artist. And the colors and textures in the recycled wood attract the attention of all passersby. Your Heritage House has the opportunity to engage your audience, young and old, in many textures, contexts, and colors. So if you have a tired, weird, boring, or dark, creepy stairwell, this could be an opportunity for you to engage a curious younger audience. Because if you know young people like I do, they're always trying to go the places that you tell them not to go. Speaking of younger audiences, they're voracious. If you can provide snacks, wink, wink, Red Seal Baker, that's a great bonus. We also have put together some really simple beverages that we can share. We're not doing as many carbonated fermented beverages these days, just because the insurance and liability is a challenge. But if it is something you consider at your museum, carbonated fermented beverages can be partnered with family events. You simply check a box in the application that allows you to say that children will be on site. And parents are not going to come and get sloshed. You're a responsible venue. Now, what you're looking at a picture of is our in-house made rhubarb juice. Using a double boiler juicer and our ever-growing rhubarb plants, we brew the rhubarb juice right there in the kitchen of the potato house. It's boiled, so it meets the requirements to be able to be food provided to the public, and we make it available by donation. With raspberries floating in it, and red clover flowers on the top. This is a favorite for people who love sweet and sour. Now, if you're taking pictures, don't forget all the other menus and opportunities for engaging your audience through the arts. So this artist, Michael Klunkner, created a beautiful watercolor book of images of heritage buildings around British Columbia that he thought were at risk of disappearing. And Potato House was at risk, but not any longer. So with his permission, he has given us the original photo, and we proudly use it for all of our marketing. Thank you very much to Michael. He's been a generous partner. A local art teacher at the high school created this pen and ink drawing, but he didn't give it to us. The local thrift store did. Making a partnership with your local thrift stores, Salvation Armies, and gatherers of old things, letting them know what you're looking for and what things might come across their doorstep that could enhance your site and attract younger audiences can sometimes be an unexpected boon. We use this photo as a coloring sheet for young students when they come to the Potato House. Now, don't forget your photographic artists. This is a great way to engage. Young audiences are on the media. They love social media, they love imagery in all its kinds, and a lot of young professionals are also very image-driven. You may remember seeing this photo of the Potato House on the cover of Municipal World, which visited every one of your municipal inboxes only 3 years ago in the wintertime. Now, what kind of things do we take pictures of? Anything that catches our eye, or anybody who's looking for a special photo. This was a part of an engagement photo shoot, and they wanted to demonstrate the contrast of young and old between him and her, and so their clothing is also reflected in the young and old of the Potato House. And this is one of our favorite photos. Here's another great tip for you museums. If you're hosting a photo shoot, instead of charging a fee, which can sometimes be a challenge, once you're established, of course, charge all the fees. But at first, ask for a single photo with permission to use it as a part of the payment. And then you are able to continue marketing with high quality professional photos that are already well connected to your community. Now, you can take photos with your smartphone. This is me taking a picture of my favorite performer in our garden gigs. Potato House uses music as a hook. All summer long, we park vintage furniture that we've collected from the community in our front yard, and we bring in local musicians. And surprisingly, there's a lot of funding out there for the arts and musicians and their wages. This is a great way to engage younger audiences, their families, their friends, and older audiences too, who like to sit around and enjoy the music on a beautiful summer's day. Now, if you've got photographers and musicians on site, why not make it an opportunity for marketing? We've used this one extensively, and thank you to the band Burying Ground, who's made the Potato House a regular stop on their tour. Now, they took photos at front of the house, but we were in the process of really pushing some marketing for our bathroom that has recently been moved to the main floor to be accessible for all, including our youngest audiences, those toddlers who need to pee every 5 seconds. So we took a bathroom, and we took a band, and we took a professional photographer, and we put them all together. Being creative in the way that you take your photos is a part of the fun of the opportunities that you have with a heritage house. Be playful. What a great transition. I didn't even plan that. So this is a photo out of focus, but one of my favorites. Play with your students. So often museums and heritage sites are, don't touch that, don't wear it, don't look at it too hard, it's old, it's broken. Find a teaching collection that they can get engaged with. Water fights over your gardens are a great way to have students make a memory that they will keep forever. These two students still talk to me about what fun they had at the potato house that summer day in the last weeks of June before school went out, when we had a water fight using our countertop compost collector buckets, which we then later sold as a fundraiser. Every kid that comes to the potato house has a sensory experience. Think about your venue as less of a visual place and more of a sensory buffet. Memory is tightly connected to all of our senses. Think about that time you walked into a friend's house and they were making a meal and it reminded you of a smell from when you were a child. That smell connection to memory is so strong for us as humans that we as museums can capitalize on it. So we get kids eating, touching, smelling, any kind of sensory experience on top of the look, listen, and feel that you expect. So they're eating rhubarb, having grapes, thoroughly enjoying themselves. And one of the things we hear often, which I'm sure many of you can commiserate with, they walk into the house and say, "This smells like Grandma's place." Oh, that's a guaranteed win. We also aren't afraid to turn our venue into a canvas. Now, for many heritage houses, your building is a delicate process, and putting screw holes in it is something you're likely not going to do. But we had funding in place to be able to refinish our outdoors, so we used it the summer before as a canvas to celebrate our resilience after the wildfires of 2017. Williams Lake and the home of the potato house was evacuated for the entire summer during that huge first wildfire season in British Columbia. And that fall, when we returned, we invited artists to come and paint and make mini murals about their experiences in the fire and the things that are still important to them as they return home after their time away. Children, when they come to the potato house, are encouraged to look, listen, feel, touch, smell, and otherwise investigate in all its forms. These are our compost bins, and the kids are industriously looking for insects. We also have regular preschools that attend the potato house, bringing us their compost buckets, and they come all season round. Just because it's cold out doesn't mean that you can't have a great, chilly, smelly experience. Summer brings out all the families. If you've got a garden, you've got a venue. Children love to play in a sandbox. If you haven't built one, do it. Don't worry about the neighborhood cats. Figure out a way to put a cover on it when nobody's there. The sandbox is one of our biggest attractions and such a small, cost-effective addition. Inviting local food trucks to park outside your site and having local musicians is a match made in every programmer's handbook. And then shamelessly put pictures of your own children throughout your PowerPoint presentation. We run an annual Halloween photo shoot, and we invite the children of the community to come and meet with local photographers who photograph them throughout and around the potato house. We call it Pumpkins and Bubbles, and the bubbles you see in the foreground is the thing we get the kids to focus on so we get some high quality, beautiful photos like these. We also use a sense of humor. It's fun to be fun, and people like to smile. Smiles are a part of memory making, so get them to smile. Be tongue-in-cheek. Just because you're old doesn't mean that you're great. Shamelessly steal ideas. So I expect all of you museums attending today to find a donation jar at Halloween that says, "Donate or die." When you see something great, write it down. I carry a notebook around in my pocket so that when I see someone doing something that I can adapt to the potato house, I'm on it, like white on rice. Photos with Santa? I was at the photo booth at the mall here in Williams Lake. The Santa was distracted, smelled like armpits. The booth was tired and worn. The photographer was exhausted. The children were screaming. I knew we could do a better job. So we partnered with the local photography club at the high school and a huge craft market and a senior who is the best Santa. We set up Photos with Santa. Now in our 5th year, Potato House's Photos with Santa by donation, our family tradition. And if you can't have photos with Santa, why not zombies? The flavor du jour is zombies and the undead. We've had zombie walks and dress-up costumes, Halloween parties, and haunted houses. If it's creepy, it sells. Heritage houses, take note. If you've got a ghost, market it. And here we're marketing that composting is so easy, even brain-dead composting zombies can do it. And the cutest zombies. Now this past year, we ran an escape house for Halloween instead. Normally, our Halloween event is a fundraiser, depending on alcohol sales, but it's not. It's a huge amount of work and the insurance is prohibitive. So we decided to go one step creepier and trap people in the house with our original skeleton keys. And it's a blast. We're using Shaw Saby Spark Insurance, and they've been great supporters for this escape house. And we found Shaw Saby through a BC Museums Association conference. So thank you, BC Museums Association, for your partnerships and bringing in these great sponsors like Subsidia, who's sponsoring today's webinar. Now, for those of you listening, and you're like, oh, I want to do an escape house. Well, you can talk to me anytime. I teach a lot, but if you can get me on the phone, I'll talk your ear off. But if you want to see one in action, hey, the BCMA Web Conference is coming to Prince George this September, and you are invited to an escape room custom made for each of you at the historic Potato House downtown. We're putting our Halloween escape room for 2019 in 2 months early, just for you. So for a sneak peek on the terrifying, the fantastic, and our really interesting locks that we get custom made at a local locksmith, come on by the Potato House on your way to the north. We'd love to see you. Now you need to have powerful friends. And now that you know me, you've got one in your back pocket. Shameless is one of my taglines. But another powerful friend you can have is each other. Now, each of the heritage houses I'm going to be showing are going to trigger a memory for many of you. Do you know this one? If you like, you can answer on the chat button and let Anissa know what heritage house is this one. Now, if you've been to the interior of the province, you've probably seen it. And recently there's been a book written about it locally, and it's doing really, really well. What house is it? This is the 108-mile heritage site, located on Highway 97, just 45 minutes out of Williams Lake, and 5 minutes from the school where I'm teaching today and taking a break to do a webinar with all of you. How about this one? You Vancouverites probably know this one by sight, the beautiful London Farm. Do you know this one? Clinton, a town that is pretty much historic buildings, cheek by jowl. The Palace Hotel is something that you can enjoy on your way to Williams Lake for the BCMA conference coming up. Do you know this one? Are my friends from Mackin House online today? Do you know this one in Victoria? I certainly hope that you know Helmicon House. Do you know this one in the mountains? Are you still trying to remember who this belongs to? You've probably seen it. It's so beautiful. It's Mizaki House in Lillooet. And if you're coming to Williams Lake for the BCMA conference, you could take the Duffy Lake Road through Whistler, pass by Lillooet, and visit this beautiful site. How about this one? I'm hoping you know Government House. Now, speaking of government, and we're talking about youth, each of the museums that I've shown you have great strategies for engaging young audiences. So talk to them and your neighbors. Have a casual conversation and find out from them what are their best strategies, because each of us have found ways to survive in a unique and changing landscape of heritage. Speaking of those politicians, get political. One of my favorite Canadian politicians. Feel free to chat into Asina. Sorry, wrong name. Anissa, if you know this famous political figure. I'm hoping it didn't take you long to figure out that this was Lester Bowles Pearson, our Prime Minister from 1963 to 1968. Now, what does this have to do with heritage houses? Well, marketing, of course. Here is the new Mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart, standing in front of a heritage house. So they love us, and we can love them right back. Marketing opportunities aplenty for both of us because nobody knows how to market like a politician. And what do they say that politicians do? Kiss babies. And are they youthful? You betcha. Get a picture of your heritage house in the background, and Bob's your uncle. Now here's the potato house, and we've got logos all over the place, recognizing our partnerships with our regional district and our city of Williams Lake. Now you want to promote everybody, not just your political opportunities. And I suggest that you go for business. Small businesses and entrepreneurs are looking for great opportunities to partner with venues like you. Does your office look like this as a small business? Well, if your cat and toddler is driving you crazy, you've got a deadline on 3 new contracts, and you're an entrepreneur, wouldn't you rather be working here? That looks like a very restful and thoughtful office space. This might be your office space. Entrepreneurs are looking for quiet, rentable office spaces that perhaps deliver tea and have Wi-Fi, and they'll usually make a donation and fill up your space. So why not invite a couple of entrepreneurs into your website and your heritage house to provide learning across the decades? This is one of our local business owners in Williams Lake. He owns a mountain biking shop that is a landmark, Red Shreds, here in Williams Lake. This is Mark Savard. So I said to Mark, what can the potato house do for you? And he said, I'm bringing 1,000 mountain bikers to Williams Lake on the May long weekend. And I said, do you need a party? And here they are. We took over the neighbor's parking lot, Mountain Equipment Co-op, Volvo, and all of the biggest names in mountain biking were there. And we had a blast. Let me tell you how much we made on liquor sales that day. Oh, I mean, fermented beverages. Sometimes it's worth it. Another opportunity for business is bees. Our heritage sites traditionally are surrounded by beautiful gardens, and these beautiful bees need a home. Now, very often, we're not going to be pollinating them with toxins or pesticides, and it's a great learning opportunity. Teachers and students alike are interested in bees because they're in trouble, and heritage houses can help. We have a resident beekeeper, and the person who was not in the photo of the board of directors is Dr. Ann Carter, a retired anesthesiologist from our local hospital turned director at the potato house. Now, she wasn't in the photo at the beginning because she also teaches the skiing program at Sun Peaks near Kamloops all winter long, now that she's retired. But come summertime, she'll be back with the bees at the potato house, teaching everybody that bees are the best and not to be feared. What other businesses can you partner with? You got a little bit of arable land that's looking ugly? Well, do you have a Chinese food buffet restaurant nearby? This huge garden in the corner of the potato house is entirely farmed by Ming's Buffet, a buffet Chinese food restaurant. They're growing their zucchinis, their leeks, and all kinds of stuff in the backyard, less than 100 steps from the back door of their restaurant. Now, you might not tell from the photo you're looking at, Potato House is located downtown Williams Lake. There is no other urban residential house left, just us. Talk about location. And Ming's Garden is there morning, noon, and night watering their gardens, which means we have 24 hours a day pretty much security. Thank you to Ming's Buffet. We couldn't pay you enough to garden at the potato house. We've also partnered with the Downtown Business Association. They've built some new banners, and we were a part of their branding process. Can you find the potato house in this new banner that now flies the flags of all the downtown lampposts in Williams Lake? There it is. And we're such a big part of the texture and flavor and brand that is downtown Williams Lake, we get our own recognition. Be persistent. Don't give up. And I can say there's days when I need this pep talk too. So please, if I need it, provide it back. And if you need it, call me, because I love to remind you that you can do it. Because some days it definitely doesn't feel like it when you're in your 97th hour of your gaming application. Let me show you where we started. In 2010, this is what the house looked like when we bought it. This was that beautiful marquee that Oliver was putting on the roof. and then it snowed 2 days later. The heat from the string lights melted through the snow and created an image that has become a landmark in Williams Lake and Potato House annals of history. We've gotten a new roof recently, thank you to funding from the BC 150 Fund that was administered through the BC Museums Association, and other partnerships including Heritage BC, Northern Development Initiative Trust, and our neighbors, businesses, and friends. And this is this past fall. We've got a paint job. It took us 10 years to paint the house, partially because everybody wanted to keep the peeling paint. It's so beautiful and interesting. But we finally had to stabilize the outside. Now, in conclusion, I'd like to share with you a story that's a little close to my heart. In the final minutes of the This Place Matters competition at the Potato House, the one that I told you about at the very beginning, we weren't watching clocks or shoulding on ourselves, you know, when you should do this or you should have done that. But with the grace 75 years in the making, we kept moving forward and loving our house. That's the word we use at the Potato House for cleaning. And getting our vintage holiday ornaments ready out of storage, sharing laughter over the antics of the previous year, when we were stopped short by a spider. This spider, a huge spider, Arrhenius diamatus. We call it the popcorn spider. Some call it a cat-faced spider. These orb-weaving spiders build their webs under our porch lights and sometimes can be huge. And this lady was a whopper. And as we walked out onto the porch that night, she was hanging from a single string, and the wind was howling as the first beautiful snowflakes were falling around us. Stately as a queen in her castle, she slowly climbed up the single silk strand towards the rafters without hesitation towards her goal. Obviously, her web had been damaged or perhaps destroyed in the inclement weather. But despite her hard work and plans falling apart, she was picking up the leftover pieces to build another web that night. And they really are amazing recyclers. They eat their old web from the night before and build a new one. If you have a tragedy at your house, I'm not encouraging you to eat the leftovers and then build a new one. But let me digress back to the story. Each new web will be better, more practiced with lessons learned and incorporated into the design, adapting to the conditions, the exposure, the location. As Oliver and I stood on the porch watching her carry out this lesson that was so poignant, I knew that this was one of those times, the ones that are with you forever. I called the staff at This Place Matters to say thank you for all of the hard work. I called the Civic Theater in Nelson and we commiserated, because neither of us won, the $40,000 that we were both hoping for. But we did create a new friendship. And the morning after, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, bursting with the realization and a renewed motivation. We are all like the spider, and even when it doesn't work out as planned, there's always something that can be used, reused, and reconsidered. So, you're wondering, what is Mary the Spider spinning for the future of the Potato House? Well, one of the things that's got my heartstrings is the United Nations 17 Sustainable Goals. You may have heard of them. In 2015, 193 world leaders signed a document to address climate change and literally all of the world's problems. And Potato House and heritage houses and sites like all of yours can be a part of this solution. Heritage sites show us how far we have come, but also shows us the skills we've left behind in our increasingly automated world. Our house and all of yours from the past can be a touchstone to create a brighter, healthier future. We're planning great events, nothing like the United Nations, to put a little spring in your step. So if you get the chance, Google 17 Sustainable Goals and see how your heritage house fits in, because these are the future things that will be affecting the youth that surround our heritage. That brings me to the end of my presentation and webinar with all of you today. I'd like to invite you to go forth and cross-pollinate your peas by taking pieces from each of the sections that I've shared with you and find ridiculous and fun ways to make your day cheerful and productive. So for example, in your handout, I suggest take all these ideas together and mix them up. Invite a politician, 2 other heritage sites, to meet with you at a local business for a game of Pictionary and lunch. Take pictures of all of you playing together and invite maybe a local preschool or kindergarten to play along and then post it all on social media. Who knows what kind of hits and popularity you can gain. My name is Mary Forbes. I've been proud to work with the BC Museums Association. I'd like to thank Lucidia for sponsoring this webinar, and the Potato House is located on the traditional territory of the Secwepemc people. And I am proud to be from and for the communities in the Cariboo-Chilcotin. I'll be happy to take your questions as long as I figure out how to do it.
Thank you very much, Mary. I so appreciate all of the wonderful creative tips for engagement that you offered us. The chat room is open, so if anybody has any questions for Mary, please type them in and I can repeat them.
You're welcome. Thank you to everybody who's answering and putting in texts, specifically targeting high school age visitors. Absolutely, that's one of my favorites. I would encourage you to specifically look for your student union or a club for students in the LGBT2SQ community. So all of your students that fall under the trans spectrum, they're often looking for an off-campus meeting place that isn't conventional, because these are not conventional students. Invite them to use your heritage site as a meeting place. Another way that you can engage high school visitors is to connect with the social studies teachers, inviting them to come and see how things have changed over time and demonstrating the specific time period that your heritage house demonstrates. I said demonstrate twice. I know you understand. Other ways of engaging high school visitors. What have I done in the past? We've done everything from art projects to visiting the school with a presentation specifically targeted to climate change. How can a heritage house address climate change besides using the UN? One of the ones that we talk about is that the greenest house is one that's already built, and that using the terms of the National Trust of Canada, a heritage house is a landmark, not a landfill. So talking about the the environmental impacts that a house that is still standing can make on a community, along with the social impacts, and then calculating that as a part of science through chemistry is an amazing outcome, and the teachers eat it up as fast as the students do. You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. I think I say your name, Avea. I'm not seeing any more chat questions come up, so I'd like to thank you all for your time and invite you to have a beautiful Wednesday. And I've got my information available, and you can contact me through Anissa as well. So drop me a text anytime you like. I check my texts at noon and at 3 p.m. And I'm a busy person, so I might not get back to you right away. Feel free to nag. And if you're passing through, don't forget to come by and say hi.
Thank you so much again, Mary. I really appreciate it. I think there were some really great examples that you gave that can be easily adapted to a museum or a gallery or any other institution as well. And I particularly like the reminder of using all 5 senses. And everybody can look for our campaign at the BC Museums Association this Halloween, Donate or Die. I like that one as well. And I apologize. Okay, so let me just see if I can share.
So to answer Tammy, Anissa is searching the handout right now to get it out to you. And so that'll be available to all of the participants. Oops. And this webinar will also be available on the BC Museums Association website. So if you hear it and think, oh, you know, my coworker was busy at grant deadlines, you know, check it out later, because you'll have the opportunity to do that on the website.
Yes, and I will be sending everybody shortly a survey to complete so we can get your feedback on the webinar, as well as the handout. So thank you, Mary, so much for providing the handout. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And if our participants or their friends who are all going to want to watch this webinar add to it, we can make it a living document. So keep adding to different sections, and then we can all benefit from it.
That's a great Great idea. We will strive to do that on our website, have it housed on our website, and then and have a space for people to email us, and we can continue to add to it. I think that's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, thank you, Mary, and thanks again to everyone for joining us today. For Mary's presentation, BCMA will be sending her very own BC Museums Association mug. Woo! Ew. Look for that in the mail to come too. And just a reminder, join us in February for the next webinars. There's a series in February on emergency preparedness that we are doing in partnership with the Canadian Conservation Institute. And BCMA is looking only for about 2 or 3 more participants now. It's a pilot project that we are hosting, or helping the CCI do. And you can participate in those 2 virtual workshops and then come away with a plan, the start of an emergency preparedness plan. So if you're interested, just email me and let me know. As well, on Tuesday, February 19th, the next webinar in our series is on sustainable artifact collecting. And if any of you have suggestions for topics or wish to present a webinar yourself, again, please email me. My email address is grants@museumsassn.bc.ca. And then please fill out our follow-up survey in your mailbox soon. Lastly, if you're not already a member, please consider becoming a member of the BC Museums Association and take advantage of all sorts of professional development opportunities, including access to discounted rates on our annual conference. And thank you very much, Mary, for promoting our annual conference. And I really hope to be able to attend that escape room event that you're planning. So that sounds really great.
Happy to lock you in.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right. Thanks again, everybody. And we hope to see you in February. All the best.